Hello, friends from across the nation and around the world. I'm Martin, and you are listening to Dad's Anytime Stories. And today, we're going to jump back into the Cards of Power novel that I wrote and read Chapter 11. Before I do that, I want to give credit where credit is due, as if you follow me on Dad's Bedtime Stories for Kids, I take a lot of my ideas for stories from the people listening. They leave me voice messages. They write in via a Google form and suggest things. And I use a couple ideas in this chapter. So, first of all, thank you to JD from Detroit, who introduced the idea of the sound wolf, which comes up in this episode. And thank you to Scarlett and Isaac, who teamed up to request a Fire Wombat, which I'm not from Australia, so I actually had to look up what a wombat was. I really researched pictures of it first. Anyways, if you like the podcast, don't forget to rate it and review it on whatever platform you're listening on. Ratings, written reviews on Apple especially do a really good job of finding other people, and Spotify is pretty much the same. And if you want ad-free versions of the show, as well as ad-free versions of Dad's Bedtime Stories for Kids, you can get them for as little as $1 per month by joining me on Patreon. All of that information should be in the show notes. And if you like the stories, again, there's like almost 600 more stories on Dad's Bedtime Stories for Kids. They're just, optimized for sleeping in that case. There's still lots of action, though. Probably too much action, if I'm going to be honest about bedtime stories. Anyways, time to get on with the chapter. Chapter 11: Fire and Sound. Carter woke inside his log cabin. He'd quickly discovered that having a cozy place to sleep wasn't just a luxury; it was a game changer. Not to mention, it was extremely cool. He stretched, yawned, and wandered into the kitchen. The fridge greeted him with a gentle hum. Carter opened it and grinned. As always, the log cabin card had restocked the fridge with all of his favorite breakfast foods, no matter how many times he used it. He grabbed a little of everything, cooked it up, and sat down with Magnus to eat. "Well, what do you want to do today?" Magnus asked, through a mouthful of something egg-like. Carter shrugged. "I don't know, go adventure, capture some cards, stuff like that." "That sounds like a great idea. I love fighting other magical creatures," Magnus said, already licking his claws clean. "Let's get going. Hurry up and finish that food." Carter scarfed the rest down, then headed to the door. Magnus followed. Outside, the little log cabin looked as modest as ever, completely betraying the mansion-like interior inside. Carter turned around, raised a hand, and summoned the cabin to return to card form. It shimmered, dissolved into energy, and swirled in a lazy spiral before compressing back into a single glowing card. The card zipped forward and merged with his card core. Together, they continued down the forest trail. They walked for a while, eyes scanning the woods for magical creatures or signs of wild energy. After rounding a bend in the path, they came to an abrupt stop. Standing right in front of them was a small creature, stout, strong, and oddly adorable. It looked like a fuzzy boulder with legs. Something about it reminded Carter of a teddy bear. "Is that a wombat?" he asked. Magnus's eyes narrowed. "I think so. The question is, what kind of wombat?" Before Carter could respond, the creature's fur ignited. Flames licked up along its back and limbs, its entire body taking on a smoldering ash-gray coat that shimmered with heat. Its eyes began to glow a molten orange, flickering like volcanic magma. Its claws darkened and hardened into glossy obsidian-like points. Wherever it stepped, Steam hissed from the earth, and tiny cracks formed beneath its feet as the air shimmered with heat. I think it might be a fire wombat, Magnus said, with a mix of awe and caution. Carter gulped. Should we be worried? Magnus puffed out his chest. Worried? There couldn't possibly be a fire creature more powerful than me. Let me handle this. He cracked his neck, his arms, his legs, and then began to glow. Fire bloomed from his veins in a burst of magic. He expanded into his evolved form, a full-sized, fearsome black dragon with flames bursting from his tail, wings, hands, and even the crest of his head. Well then, he growled, let's see what you've got, little wombat. The wombat looked up at the much larger dragon and unleashed a blast of lava spiraled fire that struck Magnus dead center in the chest. The impact sent the dragonling flying backwards through the trees. He crashed through several trunks before tumbling to a stop in a cloud of ash and broken branches. Ow, Magnus groaned. Okay, he might be a little more powerful than I thought. Carter winced. Maybe we should try something more water-based? He reached into his card core using his mind and summoned the water dragonling. The familiar blue creature materialized before him, slim, elegant, with fins along his limbs and back. The card dissolved into energy, reshaping into the dragonling form. It looked a lot like Magnus in his unevolved state, but sleeker and cooler, like an aquatic version of the original. I need a water attack, now, Carter commanded. The water dragonling blinked. He glanced at Carter, then at Magnus, still groaning on the ground, then back at the fire wombat, who looked slightly unimpressed with the whole situation. The water dragonling's expression shifted into what could only be described as mildly annoyed. He took a deep breath, preparing a powerful water jet, and was immediately blasted off his feet by another surge of fire and lava. The water dragonling slammed into a tree and slid down it, sighing. Right, Carter muttered. Time to do this properly. He summoned his rock armor and energy shield, stone wrapped tightly around his limbs, torso, and chest, while a glowing shield shimmered into place just as the fire wombat launched another blazing blast. The energy hit hard. His shield dropped from 100% to 90, then 80, then 70. He had to act fast. Carter dropped into a low stance and punched both fists into the ground. Through the rock armor, he could sense the vibrations, the density of the stones hidden beneath the soil. He found them, one by one. He connected with the rocks and yanked them from the earth. He willed them to hover in the air, caught in orbit around his stone body. He jumped into the air and began slinging the boulders toward the fire wombat in rapid succession. The wombat leapt, higher than expected, and bounced between the flying stones like a volcanic pinball. It vaulted from one to the next, gaining altitude with each jump, until it jumped directly above Carter. The creature unleashed another fiery spiral of lava and heat. It crashed into Carter's shield, pushing its energy down to 60%. All right, that's it, Carter muttered. I'm done with this guy. He reached into his card core and summoned everything he had. The lightning rabbit, the grass bunny, the elemental unicorn, and the legendary dragon all appeared one after another. Energy shimmered, cards activated, and a full squad of magical companions materialized at Carter's side. He drew his energy sword as well. the humming red blade springing to life in his hand. "All of you," Carter said, pointing toward the Fire Wombat, "attack together." The magical creatures glanced at each other. For a moment they looked unsure. Then the wombat launched another molten blast, this time hitting the elemental unicorn square in the chest. The unicorn was hurled backward through several trees and vanished from sight. The hesitation vanished. Everyone sprang into action. The lightning rabbit fired twin bolts of electricity. The grass bunny hurled vines like living whips. Magnus, finally recovered, launched spirals of flame. The water dragonling joined in with pressurized jets, and even the legendary dragon unleashed a stream of multicolored elemental force, a rare blend of powers Carter still didn't fully understand. The Fire Wombat responded by spinning in place, forming a protective dome of swirling lava and flames around himself. It roared as the attack struck, some bouncing off, others burning away. The magical barrier was strong, but it wasn't perfect. "We need more pressure," Carter said, gripping his sword. He reached down, feeling the earth again through his rock armor. This time, he didn't just pull a rock. He located a massive boulder deep beneath the surface and willed it upward. The stone cracked through the ground and rose beside the wombat with a thunderous rumble. Carter raised his arms and slammed the boulder down beside the fiery dome. The explosion of earth and shockwave sent the wombat flying into the air. Its concentration broke, the shield dropped. In that instant, every remaining magical creature struck. Electricity, water, fire, vines, and pure elemental force collided at once. The Fire Wombat yelped and spun mid-air, then collapsed on the ground, unconscious. Its molten glow faded, its obsidian claws dulled. The fire vanished. Now it just looked like a normal wombat. Carter approached slowly and knelt beside it. He reached out, hand hovering just above its back. As he connected with the wombat's energy, a warm pulse traveled through his arm. The creature glowed blue, dissolved into energy, and reformed into a card. He caught it as it hovered before him. Fire Wombat, a fierce creature born of lava and ash, surprisingly nimble, unreasonably powerful. "Not bad," Carter muttered, slipping the card into his pocket. The rest of the magical companion shimmered and returned to card form. Magnus remained by his side, flapping over to hover beside him. "I guess we shouldn't have underestimated that guy," Carter said. "Oh, be quiet," Magnus grumbled, folding his wings and dropping to the ground with a huff. They wandered through the forest for a while longer, but the excitement had almost passed. The rest of the day was uneventful. Carter battled a few low-level creatures, captured their cards, and tucked them away for trade. Nothing particularly special. That was, until they found the clearing. Chapter 11, Part 2, The Sound Wolf. The clearing was wide, ringed with tall trees and dappled with soft light. It should have looked peaceful, but something was off. Dozens of cardholders, at least 50 or 60 of them, were scattered across the grass, each one lying on the ground in a deep, undisturbed sleep. Carter tiptoed forward, peering down at a boy about his age with a creature card still glowing faintly at his side. The boy was breathing slowly, peacefully. Nothing seemed wrong, just deeply, unnaturally asleep. "What happened here?" Carter asked, turning to Magnus. "I don't know," Magnus said, sniffing the air. "But I've got a feeling we're about to find out." From the edge of the forest, a large shape emerged. A wolf, deep blue in color, with thick, shaggy fur and sharp, glowing eyes. As soon as it saw Carter and Magnus, it snarled and opened its jaw. A beam of strange, swirling energy erupted from its mouth, impossibly loud, but not in any ordinary way. The moment it hit Carter and Magnus, the ground began to vibrate. A high-pitched screech filled their ears, resonating down to their bones. Carter dropped to his knees, covering his ears, feeling weaker and weaker. "What was that?" Carter gasped, blinking through the dizziness. "A sound attack," Magnus panted, shaking his head. "We've got to act fast." Magnus took to the air. Flames flared along his limbs and wings as he gathered energy and launched a barrage of fireballs. But the wolf was fast. Too fast. It darted left and right, avoiding each blast, then turned and fired another sonic beam straight at Magnus. The fire dragonling dropped from the air and crashed to the ground, groaning. He covered his ears with his claws and wings at the same time, clearly overwhelmed. Carter summoned his rock armor and energy shield again, steadying himself as another wave of sound shook the forest. He slammed both hands into the earth, drew forth a cluster of jagged rocks, and hurled them at the wolf. The attack connected, barely. It forced the creature to stop its beam for a moment, long enough for Carter to take a breath. The wolf glared at them, then tilted its head back and howled. This howl was different. Soothing, soft, almost beautiful. As the sound reached Carter's ears, a calmness spread through his body. The ground looked comfortable. His limbs felt heavy. The idea of lying down just for a moment sounded perfect. Carter collapsed onto the forest floor, eyes drifting closed. The last thing he saw was Magnus doing the same. When Carter opened his eyes, it was morning. Sunlight streamed into the clearing. All around him, other cardholders were beginning to stir. Some rubbed their eyes, others looked around in confusion, murmuring questions at each other. Carter sat up and blinked. "Magnus? What happened?" "Huh? Who's there?" Magnus replied sleepily, then jolted upright. "Oh, right. That sound wolf, it must have put us all to sleep." Dozens of cardholders were now sitting up, asking the same question Carter had just voiced. "How do you fight something like that?" he asked, brushing leaves from his arms. "Well," Magnus said, tapping a claw to his chin, "normally the best way to resist sound powers is to, not listen. And I have an idea." He reached down into the dirt and scooped up 2 small handfuls. His palms ignited with magic, and when he opened them again, Carter saw 2 tiny black objects, obsidian earplugs, still glowing faintly from the heat. "They're a bit warm," Magnus said, "but they should cool off fast." Carter took the earplugs and popped them in. Instantly, the world went quiet. No birds, no wind, no Magnus. Magnus's mouth moved, but Carter couldn't hear a word. Carter pulled out one plug. What were you saying?" "I said keep those in. We're gonna find that sound wolf and we're gonna take it down. Then capture it." "Sounds like a plan. Any idea where it went?" Magnus stuck his snout to the ground and sniffed, weaving back and forth like a hound on a scent trail. "This way," he said, and darted into the forest. Carter summoned his energy wings and launched into the air, weaving through the trees to follow. Magnus darted below, fast and agile, racing ahead. The trail twisted deeper and deeper into the forest until they reached a wide cave entrance, partially hidden by moss and vines. Magnus sniffed again. "This is it. This is where it lives. Put in the plugs." Carter pushed the earplugs back into place. Silence. Together, they stepped inside. The cave was vast and winding, filled with twists and turns. Carter followed Magnus through the darkness, illuminated only by a faint magical glow radiating from the dragonling. Eventually, the tunnels opened into a massive chamber, cathedral-like, with high ceilings and echoing silence. In the very center lay the Sound Wolf, fast asleep. Its ears twitched as they approached. It stirred, sniffed the air, then leapt to its feet. Carter braced himself. The wolf's jaws opened, and it unleashed another deafening sonic attack. Except this time, he couldn't hear it. The ground around him quaked, vibrations coursing through the rock, but Carter stood firm. His energy shield held. The earplugs were doing their job. He activated his rock armor and extended his senses downward, locating a collection of boulders buried deep beneath the cave floor. With a force of will, he summoned them upward, erupting in a jagged column of stone directly beneath the wolf. Caught off guard, the creature was flung into the air, tumbling sideways. Magnus took the opportunity. Flames burst along his limbs, tails, wings, and crest. He launched into the air and fired an enormous stream of fire from every direction. The flames twisted together, forming a spiraling inferno that struck the wolf head on. The Sound Wolf didn't stand a chance. It hit the wall of the cavern and slumped to the ground, out cold. Carter pulled out his earplugs and let the world rush back in. Distant echoes, crackling fire, and the steady drip of water deep within the cave. "Good job, buddy," Carter said. "Well, thanks. You too," Magnus replied. "A lot easier when he can't blast our eardrums to jelly." Carter stepped forward and knelt beside the wolf, activating his card core. He reached out with one hand, feeling for the creature's energy. It pulsed, soft, subtle, and strange. There was something unique about it, something powerful. He focused, letting the card core do the rest. The wolf glowed blue, its body dissolved into energy, swirling into a tight spiral before solidifying into a floating card. Carter reached out and caught it. Sound Wolf, a mysterious creature capable of using sonic attacks to put enemies to sleep or shake them to their core. He examined the card for a moment, then nodded. This was one he needed. He tapped it to his chest, and the card pulsed with light before vanishing into his card core. Carter looked around the enormous chamber and sighed. "You know what, Magnus? I think this is a good place to have a real sleep. My back still hurts from passing out in the forest." "I'm not going to argue with you," Magnus said, already yawning. Carter summoned his log cabin card. A warm glow filled the cave, and a cozy wooden cabin materialized in the middle of the stone floor like it belonged there. They climbed the short steps and stepped inside. As always, the interior was massive and beautiful. Wooden floors, glowing chandeliers, a crackling fireplace, and soft furniture that seemed designed by someone who really understood comfort. Carter saw the couch and headed straight for it. He flopped down, his head sinking into the plush cushions. But then, he had an idea. He reached into his card core again and summoned the Sound Wolf. The creature materialized beside him, tilting its head curiously. "Hey, buddy," Carter said. "Any chance you could give me a lullaby?" The wolf blinked. Then, with a shrug, it sat down and tilted its head to the ceiling. It let out a long, melodic howl. Not loud, not jarring, but soft and resonant, like a song made entirely of vibrations and warmth. Carter's eyelids drooped instantly. The couch had never felt so soft. The firelight flickered across the walls. The sound washed over him like a warm blanket. His limbs went heavy, and a gentle smile settled on his face. As the howl continued, Carter let his eyes close and drifted off to sleep.